Hello, and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And we're going to talk about all things shift. And on this week's episode, we're going to get into the stages of change.
Ooh, when the shift hits the fan.
Yeah, when people think their shift don't stink. In the beginning, anyways. So first we like to start off by doing some of these
Skin deep cards.
We're going to try that again. And I've pulled one. So ladies first, let's have you go. And
all right. My card today says, what would you say is your initial reaction to conflict?
Now?
Yeah.
Well, I think it changes, that's something when you're trying to find your peace and kind of stay in your center. Sometimes when I'm in my center, the first thing that'll happen when a conflict comes up is I'll go into the observer if I'm at peace. But even, like today, I seem to be activated for some reason. And even though I was using my breath awareness and I had done breath work this morning, I was feeling great, but something popped up and I didn't quite stay in the adult or stay, present. And I found myself kind of going into the hurt. And it wasn't until maybe a couple of minutes later, I was like, ugh, I had to pull out of it. So I think all things being perfect, I would probably, once I sense a trigger, I would go into cultivating the observer and pulling back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what's mine? Mine is, what do you think is the hardest thing for me that I don't realize? Ooh.
What do I think is the hardest thing for you that you don't realize?
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
Could be a lot of things.
I don't know.
What's the first thing that just pops in? Unfiltered. Go for it. It's there. You're just afraid to say it. So let that shift go. I'm not scared.
One to say enough is enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's something you don't realize. I think you have your own process. And that is actually very intentional and well thought out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't actually think it's that you just don't know. I think you do know. But I think you're very intentional with how you want to be present in conflict and how you want to walk away from it if you do, or stay in it if you do, and how you want to grow from the conflict and not run from it. So while I don't think it's something that's like you don't know, I think you do. You're just very, determined to look at overturn every stone and know that you've done everything that you possibly can. You have not reacted in pain or in running, that you've stood there and faced whatever storm has come and then said yes or no or whatever it is that's most true for you.
Yeah. And I think it's, even though maybe we talk about it, often, I think it's still a relevant question to ask, because somebody may be in that and things can change, So I still think it's an important question to ask, even though somebody's giving you the indication that they're doing okay, and I know when to say enough's enough. But it's still good to have, a support system that is coming from an authentic place, from the heart, and is asking, hey,
yeah,
when do you know is enough?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of
Damn
of
these
myself.
cards. Oh,
Yeah.
What?
Make you a little uncomfortable, but that's where the growth is. So
yeah. Push through it.
Yeah. So today we want to talk a little bit about the stages of change. I've been going through and learning about a bunch of different things. And one of the things that came up for me was, different stages of, shifting, I guess you could say, or change.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting to me because they came up with 5 different stages.
And who came up with it?
awaken breath work.
Awesome.
It's in, I'm learning so much just going through this class. I thought it was going to be, me becoming a facilitator in breath work, but it's actually a master class for myself just to
For life.
For life. Yeah. It's like independent coaching for myself. I'm getting so much more than just, becoming a
1,000%.
facilitator.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I find, this particular module is specifically designed around knowing when your client is what stage your client is in, and whether or not it's a healthy fit for breath work or not, or whatever modality that you're practicing. I think this thing could be useful in all facets. But the first one is called pre-contemplation.
So this is referring to what issue is somebody having, right? It could be related to any issue we're having anytime that there's a shift that needs to happen. And, in using it for like evaluating whether or not somebody's ready for breath work, you're really just looking at like, where are you in the stage of this transformation of whatever this particular problem is, right?
Yeah, because I think people, in order to move into breath work, there has to be a willingness, to be vulnerable and to surrender and breath work. Yeah. Like you said, put in the work, because it's not something that just comes naturally, I think.
Yeah. It's not easy. You have to push yourself.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be something that, somebody could buy for a friend and be like, oh, dude, check this out. This shit
Here's
is
a gift
great.
certificate.
A gift certificate to go see Lena and Noel at Breath Factor. And we're going to.
Please don't do that.
Yeah. This is definitely something that you don't gift to somebody. Yeah. Because it's something that.
Unless they asked you for it. And then you're like, I did this for you because you asked. But.
Yeah, that would be a very different situation. But even still, then I think it's still important, because I think it's a necessary step for the individual to take the step.
Yeah, have a commitment.
To make the commitment, because then there's other things with pre-contemplation. It's really, you're at that point where, or the client may be at that point where they're not even understanding that there's anything even wrong or anything to even work on.
Yeah.
And it could be, in this sense, it's talking about just where they're at in terms of a stage of life. But
what if it was stress or anxiety?
Oh, so if we broke it down and kind of use these 5 stages and apply it to an individual thing that maybe we're not aware of.
Yeah, like, or if the person is presenting to you and they're like, "Well, I don't really have any issues," and then, but how would you then know what stage they're in this process of 5 steps of being ready for a transformation?
Well, I mean, if they're saying that they really don't have anything to work on, then they really don't have anything to work on.
They're in pre-contemplation.
Yeah, it's not my job as a facilitator to talk them into doing it.
Right.
It's got to be something that they're like a total fuck yes, I want to do this, and show me, breath work. Show me what it's about. And if that's the case, then that's something that's a definite yes for me. But if they're in pre-contemplation, that part is they're just not ready. And
what does that look like, though?
Well, I guess it's something like, they've got an issue right now that they're just kind of circling around, and haven't really pulled at the strings of the knot yet. And they may not be at a place where they're ready to process the emotions, because they're still in the beginning phases of just kind of kicking things around.
Okay.
And I think it's much more beneficial when somebody is, closer to that point, because I think the process of breath work is completing a cycle of emotion that was unexpressed. But if your natural body instinct hasn't even pulled those naturally, and you're having to pull those to the surface, you're probably not ready to express anything at this moment, because it's almost got to be bubbling at the surface. And then you're like, okay, I need something.
There's something here.
There's something here to work on. Yeah. And,
this shift starts to stink.
Yeah. Well, initially they think their shift don't stink. Yeah. And if they think their shift don't stink, then they're not ready. They're not ready. And if they're starting to smell,
the shift.
They're starting to smell this. Yeah. If they're thinking like, whoa, is that me? Then
did somebody shift?
Yeah. See, now that can be into contemplation, because then they're asking a question.
Okay. So we move from pre-contemplation to contemplation.
Yeah. And at least they're asking the question, and they're, maybe feeling out, maybe there's something here that I need to work on, or I'm sensing something that I need to let go of, or then, that's getting a little bit closer into where somebody might be in a stage where we can consider opting as breath work as an option.
Okay.
And then we would move into the preparation stage. But what does, contemplation stage look like? What we do is, as a facilitator, is give our clients a questionnaire, just an overall thing, just to see where they're at and answer some basic questions, just to see what they're feeling, what is their intentions, what are they, why are they coming to me? And that will help me understand better, where they're at in these 5 stages also.
So it's like asking, what is inspiring you to do this session?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of get a feeling or sense of what's bringing them there, what's, alerting them to that something needs to shift.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, then it's goes in the stage 3 is preparation. And it's when somebody's ready to start experimenting and has a willingness, an obvious willingness, and is taking initiative to make some changes, or at least look for options, and help, or maybe it's just reading or soundboarding with friends, something like that. At least they're in preparation.
They're moving it.
Mm-hmm.
So you go from, I don't even know that anything's wrong. Maybe I just kind of feel uncomfortable, but I don't really know that it's, an issue. There's a certain issue. And then contemplation is something's going on. I feel a little motivated now to seek help in some way, whether it's talking to a friend, whether it's going to breath work, whether it's whatever, therapy.
They're thinking about that.
They're thinking about it. And then the preparation is what? When you actually take steps, or?
Yeah, well, it's actually where you're taking steps and you're looking into a sustainable way to move forward with it.
Affect change.
Mm-hmm. A real sustainable way, not just I'm going to go try a bunch of things and throw spaghetti at the wall,
or I'm going to go drink a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
Or that's,
Yeah. That's definitely not the one. Which some people do, and I've done in the past as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're going to get into
it's not sustainable. But,
but then they're reaching out to different people, and I think once you start to talk to different friends, you may be introduced to something that you weren't exposed to in the past.
Yeah,
and it may be yoga. It could be anything.
Yeah, it could be, like you said, a book.
It could be a book. Yeah, because that's happened to me several times, and you've recommended plenty of books to me, and that really put me on a path to the next thing and the next thing, and
asking more questions.
Yeah, it was
going deeper.
I think it's definitely important to do some self-discovery before you jump into action, because that's the step 4, because just running blindly into the different stages, it can get a little bit daunting and discombobulating. It's just so much distortion there. If you can start to do some reading and or podcast or anything like that to help you start to find some clarity,
it starts to disentangle some of the knots.
And options start to come too. I think once you start talking to people, things will start to come to the forefront, as maybe possibilities of things that you may be able to do, whether it's a therapist, a life
I think
coach.
It's asking the right people too, is asking people who actually are, showing you a way that is something that you'd like to do. They're exemplifying a way of life, or maybe they look like they've got something figured out that, that looks like somebody that would give you good advice.
Yeah. Being able to discern who you should ask help from is not common sense, I would think.
Yeah.
Because you really have to, I've always had this, I've heard before, you want to find people that either A, when they see you, they light up and they're excited to see you, or B, kind of you want somebody who's going to add logs to your fire rather than kick sand on your fire.
Oh, that I like that. Yeah.
So, but you don't always know especially when you're reaching out, and that's a sign of vulnerability. You're actually showing weakness. So, you got to be, really thinking about who you're going to talk to, and
who's going to receive you in a way that is going to be helpful to you. Who's
in a position to, and we don't always go directly to a professional.
Right. We don't all have access.
Yeah, we don't have access to. So a lot of us will use journaling.
Journaling, yep.
Yep, or something like that, or just talking to friends.
Podcasts,
yeah, or books. There's all these different things that may come up. But I think it's important to, lead with your heart.
Yeah.
In these instances, because the egoic mind tends to take over and try to protect you from changing,
from being vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. So, you really have to lead with the heart, and finding somebody who also has good heart.
Yeah.
You know, one of your friends, there's always
Has your best interest at heart.
Yeah. And that's not always easy to find.
No. Sometimes it's
everybody has
easier
that.
to find in a stranger than someone that you know really well. So it's just, vulnerability is where it's at, but it's just using discernment for who to go to. And, you know, if you see somebody who's kind of doing the opposite of what you'd like to do, that's probably not the person to ask for help and advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes if you're asking somebody, you know, who's going through, you get into that victimhood mentality, and then you become thick as thieves.
Thick as thieves.
Thick as thieves.
Like if you're in a situation in like your marriage, like you're having a bad time in your marriage, you don't go to the one that's also having a very terrible time.
Yeah.
And be like, yeah, let's just commiserate on this. It's like, what is the relationship that I would like to exemplify?
Mm-hmm.
Let me find out how that's going on. How can I move towards that as opposed to maybe commiserating?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were talking about how, you know, being in a group of friends, and you know, I've been in my relationship for over 32 years, and there is, you know, a mix of different people in the crowd, and they were talking about dating and how to hold, you know, how to meet women or what have you. And the topic came up, and somehow like they were looking at me, and I just made a comment, and they were like, well, it kind of gave me this feel like, don't talk to Noel, because he doesn't know anything about dating. He's been married for 32 years. And I had this thought, I was like, well, if your goal is to be good at dating, then yeah, I'm not the guy. But if your goal is to find out how to hold on to an individual or hold on to a relationship, then maybe I'm your guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a speed dating expert. So,
how to be in a relationship.
Yeah, and how to be in a relationship, you know, because maybe that's why you're dating so much, is because you can't hold on to anything, and you're already, you know, in your 40s.
Yeah.
So, you know, you really have to be cautious with, you know, who you're asking, and really what the goal is, because, you know, maybe that's what they're looking. Maybe that's what they want to do, is be really good at dating.
Yeah, and then you ask the guy who's really good at dating, or the girl who's really good at dating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the stage 4 is action.
Okay.
You know, and this is something where you want to take tangible, aligned action toward your goals, and something, that really is sustainable for long term. You know, and it's kind of like a diet. You don't want to just do something for now. It's got to be something that's a life change, like, you know, something overall you're going to be shifting into. Mm-hmm. And that's a difficult thing, because I think when we get into action, we're kind of bouncing around between a couple of different things until we find something that works. So, but I think it's important to stay with action until you find something, and find support, and find sustainable ways to find growth and move forward with your plan to, you know, process these emotions and become closer to awareness.
Yeah.
And then,
so the action would be actually showing up to do the thing, mm-hmm. and consistently moving towards that direction of change or of transformation, or whatever it is, the goal that you have for yourself. Mm-hmm. Relief that you have for yourself is consistently showing up in that way, and maybe finding the thing that actually motivates you to stay with it.
Yeah, I think creating some sort of routine.
Yeah, like a daily routine.
Yeah.
Are you going to get up early? Can you sit in meditation or contemplation? Can you then be mindful and intentional about your day and how you're showing up? So I think, those little things can be the biggest actions. They can be micro actions that turn into really big actions. And then incorporating things like, you know, breath work, yoga, hiking, being in nature, like whatever that is. It doesn't have to be something, you know, extraordinary. It can just be micro actions that really turn into consistent action.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I think a lot of people think I got to move these big things. And I've heard a lot of times in finance, you know, it's like with credit card debt, like you don't have to attack the big ones first. You can start with all the small ones and clean up all that small mess. And those small goals feel good and create momentum.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to tackle a huge debt, right?
Yeah.
And if you compare that to emotions. Yeah, that's the same thing. It's going to draw a lot out of the bank and, basically exhaust you. So you don't have to do those things. You can build momentum and try them on small things and just take little goals at a time.
I like the analogy of, somebody's like, how do you eat an elephant?
Mm-hmm.
One bite at a time. So, your problems can feel like an elephant. Like, how am I ever going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it really is just one bite at a time. It's just taking one small action at a time that leads to bigger actions and momentum.
So, once you're taking action, Bruce Lee says that perfection is a direction, not a destination.
Mm.
And so the stage 5 is maintenance, because you're never going to be perfect, right?
No.
So once we found action and we found things, and I felt myself as I'm in action and I'm trying to find these different modalities and things that work best for me. And I'm biostacking in a sense, trying different things. Because I don't think there's just one universal thing that's just going to fix everything.
No. Everybody's different.
Yeah. I think action it kind of stays consistent. But maintenance, trying to find ways to stay continuously in alignment with your goals and just with awareness and being, present. So that maintenance part is probably the hardest thing. I mean, I'm not there yet, so I can't really give a lot of
I think, I don't know, for me, maintenance is the micro actions. So maintenance is finding that connection with yourself
mm-hmm.
and then letting that be the thing that leads you,
mm-hmm.
And that's the foundational base of everything else. So if you can stay with that and then stay consistent with your habits, then that feels to me like maintenance, And sometimes those habits will probably need to change. It's just as long as you keep with the destination, not the perfection, like you said, of the goal, it's really just keep moving in that direction.
In a lot of ways, in a corporate setting, they'll, what was the thought here? You have to keep things going, right? So if you're going to do the maintenance, you really have to do like a CE course, right? You got to keep, I would hold myself accountable somehow. This is just a thought for myself, is just, I need 5 CE points, this year. So I got to go to FFS. I've got to do, maybe I'll do a somatic release class, or I'll, do some yoga, or just really find things that I'm going out and engaging as maintenance to keep myself in check, like a CE course, something, because continuing education is what CE stands for, right? So I think you have to keep continuing.
Just saying, with continuing education, with something on the subject of that's in the direction of the goal you're heading towards.
Yeah.
So whether it's, learning more about breath work or mindfulness or meditation, it's just staying with different modalities that are still moving in the same direction.
Yeah. Because like action would be like college, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you get your job and now it's maintenance,
Yeah. How do you stay relevant?
How do you stay relevant, stay up to date and up to form, as you take CE courses and that,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I think in that same way for me, I'm just, using that as an analogy to keep myself on course. I think we can do the action, but then you don't just give up on that and rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
Right. Because that destination, it's not
it's
a destination.
It's a direction.
Yeah. So if you just rest on there, you're going to get stuck again.
Yeah.
And you're going to start repeating cycles of something.
I think the beautiful thing is, like, anytime you're kind of moving through this process of pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, that you realize you're doing it with lots of things in your life.
Yeah.
And so you can start to feel what stage you're in when you're aware that there are stages.
Yeah.
And if like, yeah, I'm at the point where something bothers me, but I'm not really willing to do anything about it. Maybe I'm at the point where I don't really think that it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then recognizing where you're at in the process can help keep the momentum on keeping, yourself moving forward in the direction of change, of transformation, of expansion.
Yeah.
So I love how this really applies to any kind of shift.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's initially when I read it was designed and intended for clients and assessing whether their readiness for breath work, but
it's more of like readiness for change.
Yeah, readiness for change. And, I think it's important what I've noticed is there's things, even though I'm in my action right now, there's things that I'm in pre-contemplation about, I wasn't aware that I'm doing. So I can take these steps and apply them, like you said, on a microscopic level, and just basically break that one down, and then expand and open on each individual, conflict
Step.
I'm having or step.
Yeah.
So if I have something, if something's coming up and somebody's saying, well, you do this, and I was like, I didn't know that, I wasn't aware of that. Now I can go into contemplation.
You were in pre-contemplation when you were like, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Somebody brings something up and is like, dude, you're being an asshole right now. And it's because of X, Y, or Z. And I'll go, I totally didn't know I was doing that. And I apologize.
Pre-contemplation.
Now I can go into the 5 steps and then work through that process on little things. So, a lot like the finance, breaking through those little things gives you small goals to achieve and makes you feel better, and, builds, kind of that light in you to keep going and going, and maybe attack some of those big ones.
Move it through with, you're an asshole. Oh my gosh. Let's move through the steps of pre-contemplation to the final maintenance. What would that look like if I was to tell you, hey, you're being a real asshole because of like XYZ, like you blew up at me when whatever, and so walk me through what that would look like.
Well, the first thing that I have to, I do this on a daily basis, actually. So I did it today, right?
Okay.
I talked a little bit about this morning where I didn't stay in the adult and having a conversation. And then it was like, it didn't, the conversation didn't go as well as planned, or the way, as well as I wanted it to go. And so afterwards, there was no conversation of you're an asshole. I just kind of felt like one.
Yeah.
and then I had to ask myself, why do I not feel good about what just happened?
Okay.
And then I had to just contemplate that. What is it about that? What was I saying? With this particular person, what things are prevalent with them? What things is a constant for them as in terms of issues with me or things in the past? And so I just took all those into consideration and go, you know what? I'm still being an asshole, So then I go through and go, all right, I need to take an action. And so
first, is this worth changing? I'm in contemplation.
Yeah, I guess
I'm realizing that this is a thing. Is this worth changing for me? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously I for me, the just feeling bad about it was an obvious, it's worth changing for me. Yeah.
I don't like how it made me feel about how I'm showing up. So it's worth it. Okay.
There was no positive outcome out of that.
Okay.
So
now you're moving into preparation.
Yeah, moving into preparation. And the preparation for me on these microscopic levels is essentially just, using some of my tools, doing my breath work, writing a little bit. I pulled over and just started writing on it a little bit. And then I was like, okay. When I started writing, I guess that's part of action.
Yeah.
Because I started just to journal about it and how do I really feel about this?
Yeah.
And
so in preparation, you were kind of thinking about like, what are the things that are going to be helpful to me to work through this?
Yeah.
So that's a preparation, right?
Yeah.
And then the action is, I know I'm going to need to journal. I'm probably going to need to breathe and really kind of get clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got some stuff that I need to process because I don't feel like on a regular basis. Most times I feel pretty at peace and calm, but today I felt like I got something to let go. Just something just kind of under the surface. This beach ball that's just wanting to break.
Yeah.
And so today I was thinking about my action today was going to be doing a breathwork journey tonight, like maybe just a half hour, 45-minute one.
Yeah.
Just something to move and express something because I just feel something stuck in there.
Yeah. The beach ball.
And then I guess the maintenance of that part would just be just constantly checking in and making sure that issue is not something that keeps popping back up.
Yeah. That you're not just pushing it back down, waiting for tomorrow, pushing it back down, then blowing up, or have something just kind of keep happening.
Yeah.
So it's maintaining like, where am I at? Checking in.
Yeah.
Checking in. Okay. I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Do you think that you'd be able to use these 5 steps? How would that be any different for you, or does it feel about the same?
No, it feels about the same. And I mean, just looking at it from a facilitator perspective, it does give me a good framework for like, where are you at in this process of really intention and commitment to your process, to transformation. And it definitely gives me a good idea of like how to, kind of help people move through it and really see where they're at in order to kind of dive into a modality like breath work or anything else. Because maybe it's not. Maybe it's here's a book.
Yeah.
Maybe it's here's some music.
Yeah.
It could be something really simple like that. And then, maybe as you move through the stages of really getting to the point where you're like, yeah, I no longer want to be this way or feel this way. And so I'm ready to take action. But it definitely takes like this internal commitment, emotional commitment in order to show up for yourself that way. And thinking about it in stages is really, I think, very powerful.
Yeah.
And even for myself, looking at like, ooh, I've hit a pain point. I didn't know that was a pain point. What do I want to do about it? Is this something I really want to go into? Is it worth it? What kind of action do I want to take? And then moving forward on it. And sometimes it's just really realizing, like, do I want to take action on this?
Yeah.
And how badly, because that's going to determine my motivation to stay with it and to maintain. So, yeah, there's a lot there. I think that's really valuable stuff.
Well, that is another episode of Let That Shift Go. I'm Noel.
I'm Lena.
And we want to thank you for listening today. We'll see you next time on the podcast.
Yeah. Don't bullshift each other,
Yeah, and don't act like your shift don't stink. Get out of that pre-contemplation.